When I saw the footage of this deck collapse, I knew immediately what went wrong. 13 people were on this deck, and what fell underneath I see all the time. Back in January in Jacksonville, Florida, there was 13 people at a vacation rental and they had a deck collapse. And I'm kind of curious, let's analyze this. So this happened on a Sunday afternoon at this vacation rental, and it's about a $3 million property. So out of those 13 people that fell on this deck, 8 of them were transported to the hospital and 5 refused treatment. The case is still open, but I thought I could go through some scenarios that may have been part of the reason why this deck failed. And the first one is because of where it's located. We're in Florida. It's a coastal community. They get a lot of marine air and marine layers where this house is. This deck may have failed because of the environment, the humidity, and a lot of the moisture and the rain squalls and the things that they get in Florida. It's one of the hardest and toughest locations in the United States for decks to survive in. That's what I've been told by a lot of the professionals that I know in the industry. Just the fact of where it was could be one of the considerations of why this deck was a failure. So one thing that I might consider a failure on this deck would be, are the footing sizes adequate? Are they just using a pre-made pier block they got at a home center? Or did they actually dig and pour concrete foundation for the deck? If the footing's not big enough, it can definitely be a contributor to a failure. Based on the footage that I've seen of this deck collapse, I don't think it was the footings. Another thing you might think about, was it the posts or the beams that failed? Were there too much distance in between the beam? Did the beam sag and collapse or break in half? Again, after looking at the footage, I don't think it's a post or beam failure either. I think that it's something else that is much more common that has to do with deck failure. People often misinstall your joist span. How far are your joists spanning from the house to the beam? You might get a dip, but does the deck break in half from the joist being overspanned? It's very spongy. It can sag like this, but again, I do not think that the joists failed in this application. But if you look at these photographs, you can see exactly what I'm talking about, where there's 2 posts and there's a center post, and it's clear that the middle of this deck is bowing down. To me, that is just improper installation. That deck probably always had that kind of bow, or it could have been the footings, and the middle footing may have sagged. It could have been an inferior footing, could have been just a footing block. I've seen people put posts on a patio block, like an 8-inch by 10-inch block, and say, that's good enough. I think that'll stand. That's not good enough. You need to really know what you're doing when you're building something that's 10 feet up in the air, right? All those structural things are a consideration, but it's not what made this deck collapse. So lateral tension support is a new code that we've had to adopt into our builds. Not having lateral tension ties attached to the deck, it didn't cause the deck to fail. It would have caused the deck not to fail if those would have been installed. That's what they're designed for. Now let's talk about how much weight was on this deck. Any well-built deck should withstand 13 people worth of weight. Even if they're up there moving around and dancing, shouldn't be a problem. Now, if it's improperly built or it's not attached to the house properly, well, obviously the people contributed to the failure of the deck because of the additional weight, and there could have been movement. It's usually more about the movement of the people than them just standing in one spot. There could have been some kind of a situation where all the people move to one part of the deck at the same time. Now, when that happens, you have a contributing motion, and then everybody stops. And guess what happens? Here's the end of the deck. Here's the house. You got a lot of people. They all come to the edge of the deck to see what's going on. They stop. It pulls the deck away from the house, and then the deck falls like this, and then the people fall into the house. People have fallen and broken their backs and gotten killed and all kinds of crazy things. The reason I think this deck failed, the combination of all the people on the deck, some kind of movement that happened, and then the deck failed. It's either that or the ledger was not attached to the house properly, and having that additional weight on the deck caused the ledger to fail at the house. If you look at the image, you can see that the deck is pointing back down towards the house in the photo. It's not a great photo, but I see this all the time. And that's usually what happens is the beam usually will somewhat stay up. The deck usually doesn't go like this and then pancake down to the ground. It usually stays on the beam and the post, but it fails at the house. So that's where people get injured, is because it's not like a slide. Like people just go rolling, tumbling. There's hot barbecues and all kinds of wine and whatever going everywhere, and people get hurt. If you look at those videos, what in poor shape these decks are, those decks needed to be replaced 10 years ago. There shouldn't have been 2 people on this deck, let alone 13. And they don't know any difference. They're there on vacation or having a good time. The person that owns that home should have been checking and doing a deck safety check. It's not proven yet. It's not a conclusion. There hasn't been a final report out on this unfortunate event, but that's what my prediction will be, is that there was a ledger failure on the house, and that's why these people got broken bones and got hurt, and 8 of 13 had to go to the hospital. So if you live in a coastal environment, or you may have rentals, maybe you should consider checking those decks, making sure they're safe so that your guests aren't getting injured.